Well, look, this is the seventh growth plan from the government in a decade. This comes after 12 years of a government presiding over low growth, low investment, low productivity. It's a roll of the dice by the Chancellor to try desperately to get things to be different, but I think we all know they won't be. The Chancellor himself was demolishing the Conservatives' record in office, and now he's gambling with family finances across the country to keep the Tory party happy.
Labour itself, James, called that increase in national insurance when Rishi Sunak implemented it in April a tax on jobs. You've got what you wanted. Wouldn't it be grown-up politics to acknowledge that that aspect of what the Chancellor has done, at least, is good news?
Well, when it comes to national insurance increase, you're absolutely right that we said right from the beginning, a year ago, that increasing national insurance on working people and businesses creating jobs was the wrong thing to do. So, of course, we're glad the government has finally come round to that. But across the piece, this is not a plan for growth. This is not a plan to do anything different than we've seen over the last 12 years of this Conservative government, and we're getting more of the same.
Also said that Labour supports wealth creation. So how would you do that, James?
But we want to make sure that this country's economy can grow. And when I go and speak to businesses across the country, what they talk about is making Brexit work, investment in infrastructure, making sure that we have the skilled workforce that we need in the UK. There are all sorts of things which businesses across the country speak to me and my colleagues in the Shadow Treasury team about. We saw none of that from the government today. They don't have a plan for growth. This is more recycled ideas from the last 12 years, and that's 12 years of low growth, low productivity, low investment, and a recipe for failure.
Two of those ideas that people have been saying to you, this is what we would like Labour to do if they were in power. Just two of them.
Well, for example, the number one thing, make Brexit work in terms of the agreement, Northern Ireland Protocol, and so on. Second thing that businesses talk about all the time to me is business rates. They say how the system of business rates is punitive, particularly on high streets and small businesses. That's why we have set out our plan to scrap the current system of business rates and replace it with a fairer system. We heard nothing about that today.
At the last Labour conference, James, this time last year, Rachel Reeves did indeed make a major speech on business rates. I was very quick to give her credit, both on GBNews and in my Telegraph columns. I just wanted to ask you, though, as Financial Secretary to the Treasury on the shadow front bench, what your thoughts are on the currency. Just before we came on air, Alistair and I were looking at the currency markets. The pound's down over 1% since the Chancellor stood up in the House of Commons. It's now below $1.11. How concerned are you that there's too much borrowing here, too much spending, and that the pound could get weaker?
I think it's very concerning, and I think what you're seeing is the markets issuing their verdict on what the Chancellor has said straight away. Now, we've been pushing the government, for instance, over the energy price cap to make sure that some of that is funded through a windfall tax on oil and gas giants' excess profits. But what the government have decided to do today, and what the Chancellor confirmed he was going to do today, is put all of the cost of help with home energy bills onto borrowing. So that would increase the borrowing, put the cost of that onto current and future taxpayers, rather than getting money from a windfall tax on the excess profits of oil and gas giants. There's a different way to do this, which we set out, and the markets are issuing their verdict on the government's approach.